Yes, sir.
There we go. Now, as always, before we begin, any thoughts, cognitions, questions, comments, any corrections, anything based on our last meeting, the meeting before that, or anything in general? Does anyone have anything? With all these brilliant minds, I know we have to have at least something.
Well, Brother Lukman, if nobody has anything, I have something.
Oh, well, go right ahead, Sister Tina.
Okay, I had a dream this morning, early this morning, before prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And the dream was me and another sister and I, we were in this um, like check cashing looking place.
Mm-hmm.
And there was people in there, other people in there, and we were dressed like, you know, uh, dressed down like with our caps on or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And and so there was a brother, and in my dreams, I always see 2020 for the most part, always 2020. So there's a brother sitting in a chair, and he's looking down like he's upset about something, and he reaches into his pocket, and the thought comes to me, is he going to pull out a gun? And that's what he did. He pulled out a gun. And so my first thought, because I was standing not too far from the door, was to get out of there. So I'm at the door on my way out, and I turn around, and the brother has the gun down on top of a a little boy's head. And the boy looked like he was about 12 to 14 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And so I instinctively went out the door. And so I'm out the door, and I'm thinking about, okay, I'm thinking about the situation. So the brother comes out of the check cashing place. He comes out and takes the little boy into like a parking lot area and has the gun still on top of the little boy's head. So he's around now a whole lot of other people where other people can see him in so nobody's doing anything. Everybody's just looking. And so I'm thinking to myself, really, I'm not thinking to myself. I'm looking, and then the alarm goes off for prayer,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So I get up for prayer, and so I get up for prayer, and when I realized, I said, "Oh Allah, why did you give me such a dream?" And so on the prayer rug, I remember thanking Allah for the dream because I needed to see that, to know what I would do in a situation
Mm-hmm.
like that. I've been thinking about situations like that for years, since the 10,000 Fearless, I believe it was, since the
Mm-hmm.
minister initiated the 10,000 Fearless. So I said, okay, so I started thinking about how could I have changed that? And and I uh I said first I would call on Allah, Allahu Akbar, so he can guide me into what to do. And I would walk up to the brother because I would think to myself, now is a good time to die. Today is a good time to die, if that be the case, because we're not supposed to just stand around and let stuff like that happen. That's how we're being taught and trained as saviors. So I said I would walk up to the brother and ask him to please don't kill my brother. Please don't kill my little brother. That's my little brother. You're my little brother, or you're my big brother. And and uh and I would just go as Allah would guide me, but I would not just stand there and do nothing. So um yesterday in my studies, I'm on column C, behavior and physiology, and that's
Mm-hmm.
dealing with the three. It's first dealing with the three actions of life: attack, retreat, neglect.
Mm-hmm.
So my first response was retreat. That's when I walked out the door in the check cashing place. Then
Mm-hmm.
Allah gave me a second chance to see it again and decide what am I going to do. So it would have to be attacked, but not in a forceful, irresponsible, irrational way, but
Mm-hmm.
attacked in a way of talking to the person. Yeah. So I just wanted to share that.
That's interesting.
It is. I thought it was very interesting, and it was a mercy from Allah because I needed to see that.
So is that like an aspect of confront?
Yes, it is.
Let me see if I
And
can find it.
is that what the okay, the minister was talking about a Savior's Day to stand. That's standing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Uh, this is the reason why I say what I say, because you just brought up a thought. Um, one of the things that L. Ron Hubbard said in one of the books I'm reading right now, he says, that which one fears, one becomes. Then
Wow.
he says, an individual has to resist something, has to be afraid of something, has to be afraid of the consequences of something before it can have adverse obsessive effect upon him.
Mm.
Then there's one part he says in here, it might not actually be this book. He gives a definition for cowardice. Where did I see that at? I have to find that at another time. But how we say, I seek thy refuge from cowardice and niggardliness.
Mhm.
He mentioned something about cowardice, and cowardice is the inability to confront. Remember how the minister said that he was walking one time and there was a bull in his path? You ever hear that story? There
Mhm.
was a
Yes.
bull standing in his
Oh, yes,
path.
sir. Yes, sir. In Mexico. He was in Mexico, I believe.
Yes,
Right.
sir.
And he did say that he had a little bit of trepidation, right? A little bit of fear, I think he said.
Yes, he did. He did.
But he said he confronted it, right?
Yes.
Okay. If you look up the word postulate, in one of the definitions for the word postulate, it also means to make a demand. So if we're making a postulate, we're making a demand. And I'm gonna take it to the level of we're making a demand on the universe. Didn't the minister say that the universe is like a large mammary gland?
Yes, sir.
The more we pull on it, then eventually we'll get the things that we need.
Yes, sir.
And I was going through the tech, and this is going to tie back. This is going to tie back to what you were saying. When we make a postulate, I hear an echo.
There's an echo. Yeah.
Yeah, wait a minute. How about now? There we go. Okay.
Okay.
So when we make a postulate, like the minister made a postulate with regards to the bull, or with regards to us making a postulate on anything, from the perspective of the tech and looking at life as a game, it is as if every time we make a postulate, we're making a demand on the universe, and the universe is obligated to allow our postulate to come into existence. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
The minister has taught this once before with regards to doubt, and it also says this in the Holy Quran, that as soon as we start to doubt certain things, we are pretty much cutting off the flow of receiving what we postulate, correct?
Absolutely.
Yes.
So if we believe and doubt not, it might not come exactly when we want it. But the more we postulate, we're actually pulling forth all the elements from the triple darkness. If you want to talk about the quantum field and quantum universe and all those things, our mind is manifesting all of the events, all of the circumstances, and all the people to bring into existence what we are postulating. Does that make sense?
Mm. Yes,
Right.
sir.
How can we prove
Mm.
this? Because all the wrong stuff we've ever thought about, we got, didn't we?
Yes,
Yep.
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. That shows the. I remember Dr. Ava speaking about that. She said our mind is like a magnet,
Mhm.
and she says whatever you think upon, you bring it. That's why we have to be very, very careful what we think about. If we go around thinking, "Oh man, I know something's going to happen. I know something's going to go wrong," then eventually it's going to go wrong, right?
Yes, sir.
We are like little gods coming awake. We're like little baby X-Men, not really understanding the total power of the gift that we have. And sometimes our gift might cause some problems. Mainly, it might cause problems in our own life, correct?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
But when you go back to postulating, because confronting is a type of is like a postulate, isn't it? If we're
Go
confronting
Yes,
ahead.
sir.
something, isn't that a counter effort?
Yes, sir.
So when a counter effort presents itself, perhaps the reason for that counter effort to present itself, counter effort is the language of the tech, trial is the language of Islam. So the trials purify. The trials allow us to manifest who we really are.
That's
We're
right.
either going to confront it or we're going to run away from it. I think that's called the Black Panther. The Black Panther, y'all know what I'm talking about, right? The Black Panther mechanism.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So so if we look at what the minister did with the bull, we could say that that was a postulate. The postulate was he's not gonna sidestep, and eventually the bull moved. Correct.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
He
So that
started
right.
walking towards the bull. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. So that's just a long-winded way of just taking something and looking at it from the perspective of the tech. We technically could have anything in life that we want. We just have to keep adding energy into our postulate, and then we can't. Doubt is like unplugging it. Okay.
Right.
Doubt is like unplugging. It's like when you're on the phone and you're talking to someone, the conversation real good, and then you didn't realize that you didn't charge your phone.
Mm.
Phone goes off. That's doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Doubt disconnects us from the postulate. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
go ahead, Sister Peggy.
Assalamu alaikum. So
Well, like,
last February was when I fell down the exit stairs in my apartment complex. That's how I broke my ankle in 3 places. So, and then my son has been auditing me for that fall. And so yesterday was the very first time I'd been able to even go near the exit without getting butterflies or feeling as though my stomach is turning over.
Mm-hmm.
So yesterday, I actually walked down the entire flight of stairs.
Allahu Akbar.
No, without any bad side effects. I just walked down the stairs. And so it's just like falling off the horse and then you're able to get back. So yeah, because for a while I was very afraid. And for 2 days after I fell, I would have dreams. But that was it, just the 2 days.
Mm.
So now I feel very happy about myself, and I feel very happy that my son has the ability to audit me and help me, and he's been helping me explain what happened. And then the second thing I have to say is that you were explaining about the postulate. For those that don't study Scientology, they call that the subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
So because your subconscious always wants to help you, and it doesn't matter whether you put it in positive or the negative, it's going to remove the negative and make the positive part of that happen. So if I don't want to fall down the stairs, I don't want to fall down the stairs, but my subconscious will remove the word don't and I will fall down the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all I have to say, but I'm very pleased with myself, and all credit is due to Allah.
That's the
all
confront.
praise is due to Allah. That's
Due to
right.
Allah. Tech works.
Yes, sir.
Confronting.
Brother Lukman, can you give a simple definition of postulate for me, please?
Kun fire kun.
Say be and it is. Okay, be and it is.
That is
Okay.
that is
Okay.
uh one of the, I'll see if I can find it in the Holy Quran, but it says that Allah is the doer of what he intends.
Okay.
Okay. So whatever
So,
Allah's intention is, he just says, now the minister explained it like this. It doesn't mean abracadabra.
mhm.
The way that Minister Farrakhan explained that, he says, as soon as Allah determines that he wants to bring into existence whatever he intends, he begins to move and maneuver people and control situations to bring into existence his thought. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir, it
We
does.
have the ability to do the same thing. It's just that if it doesn't happen sometimes in the period of time that we have chosen, we get frustrated. But we have to just look at, okay, it might not happen in this cycle of time. So let me just extend that cycle of time. Let me give myself another couple of days. I think the more we do the little things and postulate little things, that will give us the energy to start to postulate big things. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. So that sounds like the same thing as building the will. What we have to do to build the will is the little things. Say, I'm going to do this and move every obstacle out of our way that keeps us from doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
If you remember, go back to the study guides. And I think it was Dr. Ava that mentioned this in one of the opening letters. She said every time the minister would go through a cycle of time, anything he would postulate, it would speed up. You remember
Right.
reading that in the
Right.
study guides?
Yes.
So there are certain things he was accomplishing in months, then there's certain things he was accomplishing in weeks, and then, but that's the whole thing. As we begin to grow into the understanding of who we really are and we get rid of doubt. See, this world is designed to keep putting doubt. Oh, you can't do, you can't do, you can't do. And that's why sometimes it's good not to reveal your intentions to people,
Mm.
Yes, sir.
because there's a saying that the person who says it can't be done should never interrupt the one that's doing it.
Come on,
Mm.
brother.
So sometimes you just got to keep silent. And I hate to go off on these tangents, but my mind starts going through the lessons. Our lessons say that we must speak past, present, and future tense being perfect, correct?
Yes.
Okay. What is the difference? And we'll do this real quick. And I know there's another tangent, but there must be a reason why this is coming up, and then we'll get into our topic. Um, when you deal with grammar, you have what's called the perfect tense and you have what's called the imperfect tense. When you speak perfect tense, now we're going to combine our supreme wisdom with the tech for just a minute. From the perspective of grammar, when you speak in the perfect tense, you're speaking about cycles of actions that have been completed. Example, yesterday I read the book. By me saying I read the book, that tells you, did I complete the cycle or was that cycle incomplete?
Complete.
That's a
Complete.
complete. Through the language, through the tone of my speech and the word I use, you can tell that cycle was completed. If I said today I put out the garbage, okay, even though there's really no such thing as a present tense because this moment in time is just an instant and it becomes past. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Okay. But if I said I put out the garbage, that's a completed cycle. Now, if I said tomorrow I'm going to finish my lesson, okay, tomorrow hasn't gotten here, but the language implies that I'm going to complete that cycle tomorrow, correct?
Yes.
Right.
So speaking past, present, and future tense is about I made my word bond in the past. I'm making my word bond in the present. I'm going to make my word bond in the future, right?
Yes.
So a postulate and making my word bond, have you not heard that your word shall be bond regardless of whom or what? That's a postulate. Okay.
Okay.
Speaking the imperfect tense is when we speak and the cycles have not been completed. If I say yesterday I was going to read the book, what does that tell you?
You didn't
Wasn't
do it.
done.
Didn't do it. imperfect tense, incomplete cycle. Today I was thinking about putting the garbage out, didn't do it. But if I say tomorrow I'm going to meet you at such and such place, then I don't show up. That's an
You
incomplete.
didn't do it. Right. Yes,
That's
sir.
not making my word bond.
Okay.
Okay. I have something else I want to go into, but I'm going to hold on to that for just a minute. Sister Sharon.
Yes, sir. I had my hand up before, and then I put it down because my phone the battery is dying. And you snatched the thought, and I was like, let me raise my hand and say it. When you said when you have something, keep it to yourself, don't reveal it. And I was thinking that because when I say certain things, somebody will cast doubt, somebody will speak negative to it, and it's like, why didn't I just keep that to myself? And I'm learning from Brother Batin. He mentioned the first time I heard postulates was from Brother Batin, or I remembered it from him. And he was saying that it was causative thinking. And he went into how you be cause. Don't allow somebody else to be cause. You be cause and you cause and effect. So, just learning to postulate or just learn a different word for what Allah says, being it is. When we hear it in a different word or a different way, it makes sense to me. What Allah is ordering us or has ordained for us. And, for me, postulating is, considering it already to be true. And just keep thinking on it's true, it's happening, it's going to happen, I'm making it happen. And when a little doubt come up, because sometimes it still does, I'm like, you know what, be quiet. No, this is going to happen because I'm working toward it. And when I got ready to go for my flight, I was excited. I didn't have that fear, but when I got on the airplane, I'm just like, uh-oh, here go that feeling. So I recognized the feeling. I was able to quiet it down. And what did I do? I'm like, okay, there's no God but Allah. And I just started saying the refuge prayer. And for me, that's being it is. Get on this airplane, sit down and quiet those thoughts up, those people that's talking to you from hearing someone else say that they're afraid to fly. And my mother kept coming up in my mind. She's like, I'm not flying nowhere. I'm scared. She's afraid to fly. And I'm like, that's not an original thought of mine or a thought of my own. It's from hearing someone else say it. So I'm learning to, get with myself and say, no, being it is, this is going to happen. It's already happening because I'm working toward the goal. And I've been accomplishing so much. And, just keeping certain things to myself. Praise to Allah.
Yes, ma'am. God willing, I'm going to try to find the clip and I'll show it at the end of our Zoom meeting. There's a small clip, I think it's maybe about 3 to 5 minutes long, of the minister speaking about that very same concept of keeping things to ourselves and manifesting it. But 2 quick points. What's so funny?
No, I was coughing. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, this brother keeps saying 2 quick points. I know I talk a lot. I apologize. We spoke about this a while back, but this is something that's in the tech. Remember we spoke about the 3 universes? Remember that concept, the 3 universes?
Yours, mine's,
And the.
Okay.
So you have the universe, there's my universe, and there's your universe. Universe also means reality.
Okay.
I would like to kind of add a caveat to that and say there's a 4th universe, and I'll explain why. We can kind of look at it both ways, but this is going to tie into what you just said, Sister Sharon. One thing L. Ron Hubbard said about the universes, he says, if you become stuck in someone else's universe, then you begin, I think I'm paraphrasing, he says, but then you become controlled by the God of that universe. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So what happens is, in the other person's universe, there's a whole different set of rules. There's all different types of laws. And the laws of that universe and the laws of my universe don't have nothing in common. That other universe might be ruled by a totally different God than the one that rules mine. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So if I become stuck in your universe, then I'm controlled by the laws of your universe. I'll give you an example from the Holy Quran. There are different points where it talked about the prophets, and they spoke to the chiefs and the leaders, and they said, well, why are you doing such and such? And they said, because we found our fathers doing this, right? Remember that?
Right. Yes, sir.
Okay. And then it says, even though your fathers were in error. That's another way of saying that they do what they do because they are in the universe of their ancestors. They follow the rules of their ancestors. When Abraham went and smashed all the statues, and they said, well, who did this? And Abraham said, well, ask the chief. I mean, that's who you pray to. Ask him. He should be able to tell you, right?
Mm.
That was their universe, and their universe was in error. So when we share our ideas with individuals, the laws of their universe might think that what we're doing is too big. And for us, it just seems like it's like as easy as breathing. You know, if we could really, and I'm gonna pick on you for just a minute, Sister Peggy, but if we could have seen some of the things that Sister Peggy had done in the because you said you're in the operating room, correct, Sister Peggy? You still with us? Maybe she stepped away. Okay, I'm gonna slide over here to the doctor. Brother Doctor, there are certain things that you have done. If we observed it from the outside, we'd be like, man, that is incredible. But to you, it's just normal every day. This is what I do every day. You know, this is just what I do, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If we were to sit in on some of the classes that you teach, you know, I at one point in time I was going to ask you if I could just sit in because just to listen, because I mean I love medicine, I love the medical stuff. But if we sat in and listened to how you're instructing these students to prepare to become doctors, from our standpoint, we would be like, man, this is incredible. To you, this is just routine. This is what we talk about every day, right?
Yes, sir.
This is why there's a saying: you can't share large ideas with small-minded people.
Mm.
So sometimes we have to get in our universe. Sister Sharon, I'm sure there's things that you have decided to do and things you've done, and other people have observed, and they say, how in the world did you do that?
Yes, sir.
And to you, it's just like, well, first of all, certain things I ain't got no choice. I have to do it because I'm in a position. I have to do it. But it's become so routine that it's just what you do, right?
Right. They call me super mom at my job.
Exactly my point. Exactly my
Yeah.
point. So that proves that point. Now, last thing, and this is what I wanted to share beforehand. There's proof that we can influence our universe with thought. If you ever take the time just to study just basic quantum physics, just a basic video, one of the first things they talk about is called I think it's called the 3-slit experiment or the 2-slit experiment. They have a barrier. They have these two openings, and they shoot these particles. And when the particles, when that experiment is done, and it is not observed by a person, you'll get a certain pattern on the other side where it's shown where the particles hit the other piece of metal. Does that make sense? It's like the particles are going to go through these openings, and then there's another screen, almost like say like a photographic screen, and you can see the pattern of the particles hitting the screen on the other side.
Mm.
When
Yeah,
you
I've seen the experiment, the two-split experiment. I've
okay,
seen it.
praise be to Allah. Now, when someone observes that, when someone's actually watching it, there's a different pattern that takes place. And what scientists are saying is that by observing what's taking place on a quantum level, that observation changes the outcome. Does that make sense? There's certain events in our life that keep happening over and over again because we are not confronting it. We are not observing it. By observing it, we can, just by simply observing, we can change it.
Right.
Okay, that makes
Yes, sir.
sense.
Okay, so that experiment is like a demo kit to show that our mind has the ability to affect matter on the quantum level. The stronger our mind becomes, the more cause we become over the meshed universe, which is the effect. The mesh, Allah says in Holy Quran, the meshed universe, well, he doesn't say meshed universe, but Allah says the universe is here to serve us, correct?
Yes.
Right.
Okay. The universe was not brought into existence to master us. Just like the tech is a tool for us to accomplish certain things, the universe is a tool for God to manifest godliness, correct?
Right.
Yes.
Each one of us has the ability to bring things into existence as long as it's in accord with the universal overall plan, correct?
Right.
But sometimes even we're allowed to bring in certain things in our life that we realized that I really didn't want that. So I had to learn the hard way on that one, correct?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. Sister Sharon, go
Yes.
ahead and then we're going to move to our PowerPoint.
Yes, sir.
Those were Sister-
One exercise L. Ron Hubbard has is being in communication with your universe, what's around you,
Mhm.
and that's walking through and picking up things, being in communication with it and putting it down. That frees up some life force.
Mhm.
So, you're causing an effect in your own universe. And, like with my children, when I go into their space, if it's chaotic, I have to walk away. But in my own space, I'm able to keep it in order the way that I need it to be.
Mhm.
But I can't go into their space and pick their stuff up and put it down and rearrange it how I want it, because that's how they choose to have it. So that makes me focus on what it is that I need to do for me, look inward and not outward, and then
Mhm.
for whatever situation, look outward and not inward.
Mhm.
So, I've been using that technique, just being in communication with myself and things around me.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Exactly. Because as soon as someone come and try to change our universe, that's like almost like a type of invalidation, right?
Absolutely.
Ain't nothing worse than someone coming to your house and they start moving stuff around, right? Like, what are you doing? That's not
Yep.
well, this is how I do it. Well, you go back to your house, you do it the way you want to. But if you're staying here for the weekend, let's do things the way we do things here. Sister Tina.
I just wanted to ask the relationship, what you said about changing the reality.
Mm-hmm.
What came to my mind is the same as when we uh, uh, run away from something. Like, let's say I don't like uh, the way people are in this particular city. I don't like, oh, I'm going to say it like this. I don't like the way people are in this particular mosque. Sometimes we may say that. So I'm going to go to another mosque, you know? And so if we don't face, so when we go to the other mosque, we face the same problems we had at the mosque we just left.
Mm-hmm.
So what you said, is that the same thing as that? If we don't face our problems where we are and we run from it, we don't confront it and we go somewhere else, we're going to run right into it. There's an old saying, when you run away from a thing, you run right into it. Is that the same, Brother Lukman?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Most definitely.
Okay.
Two quick points. One is, I can't remember where I heard this story before, but there was a man who was on a journey, and he met a man that was sitting by a tree right outside the city. And as this individual comes walking up, the man by the tree says, where are you going? And he says, yeah, I'm on a journey into the city. And he says, oh, and he's sitting with his apprentice, we'll say. And he says, I'm on a journey looking for a city where I can travel to. He says, well, why are you traveling to look for another city? He says, because the city that I'm from, everyone's a liar, everyone cheats, everyone does these things. So I'm trying to find a place where I can get away from those things. He said, there's no sense of looking in that city because you're going to find the same thing there that you found in the city that you just came from. So I wouldn't advise you even go in there. So the man just kept walking. Another man walks up. Same thing. Where are you going? I'm on a journey. Where are you going and why are you on a journey? I'm looking for a city where people are loving and kind and look out for each other. He goes, well, this is the city right here. This is exactly where you want to go. Welcome. He goes in.
Mm.
So the apprentice is like, well, you told the first dude not to go in, and then you told the second, this is the modern translation. You told him to go right in. Why would you? He said, because when you travel, what he's saying is, you're going to find, no matter where you go, you're going to find that which you are.
Mm.
What you find is going to be based on your viewpoint. So that's just one of those, I can't remember where I heard that story. This is one of those stories I read someplace. It might have been Aesop's Fables, or I don't know, but I just remember that story.
Good story.
Whatever
Yeah.
we view, so whatever mosque you go to, if you're looking for the negative, you're going to find it.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way it is. If you look, part of what's taking place in the mosque is part of, if we look at it under the lens of the tech, could we call it bull baiting?
Yes, training. It's training for
It's
sure.
training.
Yes,
It's
sir.
training.
For sure.
Because if you can endure what's taking place inside the mosque, isn't that preparation for rising above emotion outside the mosque?
That's right. And it's far worse in the world. Far, far worse.
So it's like, what's taking place, we want things to be peaches and cream and all happiness and teddy bears and stuff like that. But if we ourselves are not clear yet, if we're aberrated, why do we think we have the right to go into an environment that is like in the hereafter? But when we show up, we're bringing our aberrations there too. So we have to take the time to, I try to live my life like this. I try to look past people's faults and flaws because I see how Allah looks past mine. So I try not to judge so that I'm not going to be judged. When I look at certain people and what they do, sometimes, not always, because I'm not clear yet, but one of the first things I try to do is, am I guilty of doing that same thing with other people?
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm
Yes,
honest
sir.
with myself, if I'm honest with myself, there's been times I said, man, I that used to irritate the hell out of me. But I said, wait a minute, if I start lock scanning that, let me, if someone says something stupid, okay, let's lock scan how many times I've said something stupid. And now my file clerk says, well, bro, look on this. We got a whole treasure trove of stuff that you said.
Mm.
So I can go back on my own time track and say, damn, I've been greatly unjust to myself, and I got to confess my faults. Now, yeah, that happened. I did that. I said that. So it's not, and I'm not saying this for us, but just generally speaking, we need to stop focusing on the flaws of other people and start doing some serious self-analysis on ourselves. And then we realized that we ain't got the right to point the finger at nobody.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I had that same experience just yesterday. I was talking to a sister, and I thought that after I hung up, I said that was a strange conversation,
Mm-hmm.
because the sister, she called to check on me, and in the midst, within our conversation, she asked me a question. I would answer, and before I can finish, she's cutting me off, and she did that like almost throughout the whole conversation, cutting me off, interjecting what she felt was, the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so I listened to her. So I was able to, because I listened, I was able to hear what she was saying and say, okay, maybe that'll work. Maybe that'll work. Maybe that'll work. And in the process, I was able to also finish what I was saying. When she stopped talking, I was able to finish what I was saying, letting her know, yeah, well, you did cut me off, so I'm going to finish what I was saying.
Mm-hmm.
So after the conversation, I said, wow, she was, what was wrong? I was thinking she was a little antagonistic.
Mm-hmm.
But then I said, after appreciating the conversation, because she did give me some information that if I look at it, it could possibly work. After appreciating, I then saw that, oh, you do the same thing. You cut people off too when you think you're right about something that's being said. So I said, oh, so I gotta watch that. And then I started thanking Allah for the conversation because it showed me that I do that too. Mm-hmm.
So in other words, sometimes Allah holds a mirror up in front of us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that's what we do with
Mm-hmm.
one another. Am I my sister's keeper? Yes, I am.
Mm-hmm. Praise be to Allah. Okay, here's the last point. I thought this was key. And this is based on a misunderstood I had. And I didn't even realize it. And I know I mentioned this probably our last Zooming, but I didn't go into detail what it was. I want to share this with us because it was like flipping a switch and the lights going on. I just had to finish part. I'm still going through SRD. And in going through SRD, there's a book called The Fundamentals of Thought that you have to go through. And it's done in 2 parts for SRD. And in the first part, I had completed it. And it talks about the ARC triangle, talks about know and not know, and conditions of existence, be, do, have, and start, change, stop. All those things we talk about on a regular basis. I get to the part about the 3 parts of man: analytical mind, reactive mind, somatic mind. And then later on, L. Ron Hubbard speaks about this thing called the genetic entity. Now, this whole time, I thought the reactive mind and the genetic entity were the same thing. So what happened was, before I could get signed off on this part of the book for SRD, I had to go get on the cans. And we all know what get on the cans means, right?
Is that the technology from Scientology?
Yeah, Scientology, you got to get on the cans. They can detect certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So before you can get past certain things, you got to go on the cans. They want to make sure there's nothing there that's unresolved. So there's no faking the funk going through certain things. You get tested at certain areas. I get on the cans to get signed off on the portion of the book I read, and I don't want to say the dude, and the brother was sitting there just staring at the machine. In my mind, I'm thinking, okay, what the hell's taking so long? I got this. I know this. He's sitting there looking. He says, you know what? You have to go back to the courtroom. There's something that you missed. I mean, because he asked the question about the text, and I responded, and so he's looking at the meter. And so based on whatever was on that meter, I didn't have what's called the floating needle. There was something in what I read that I didn't understand, and they caught it on the machine. I think that's amazing. So my first thought was, well, let's get back to the course room. I got to find it. I didn't get all upset and angry. I'm just like, I got to find this. I want to know what it is I don't know. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, I know this, you know. So I get up there, and the Scientologist, Brother Ian, he says, go back over chapter 7 and chapter 8. So I'm going through chapter 7, and I'm like, okay, analytical mind, reactive mind, somatic mind, somatic mind. And so I'm thinking, I know that. And then there's another condition called know and not know. I'm like, I was kind of shaky on that. I kind of felt there was a little shakiness there. But I'm going through this, and then you know how they come and they ask you those questions. And when you see them walk over, you already know, oh damn, here they come. What are they gonna do? What are they gonna pick up now? You just see them doing the walk. I don't mean that in a negative sense, but I always think it's funny because I always try to, when I'm there, I try to make sure I don't yawn. I'm trying to make sure I don't fidget because I'm like, look, I just want to study. I don't want to be bothered. He comes over, he asks me a question, and I responded, and he's looking at me, he's nodding his head. Okay, okay, that's a great response, great definition, great understanding. Let's look at this. So automatically, I'm like, okay, there's something that's not quite right with my understanding. All this is for a reason. He shows me the definition for the genetic entity. And when I read the definition for the genetic entity, it was like a light switch had been flipped on. We know what the analytical mind is, right? That's the part of our brain that allows us to figure stuff out. Okay. That's kind of like the higher part of our thinking. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. The reactive mind has to do with, and the word he uses is glandular at that time period. In modern time, we could say endocrine. The reactive mind is the endocrine system and the nervous system. In other words, the trauma that we have experienced in our lifetime is stored in our nervous system. Does that make sense? Okay, it's stored in our nervous system. Now, the books that we have been reading outside the tech, the book by Dr. Gabor Mate, the book by Dr. Candace Pert, Molecules of Emotion, the book Deadly Emotions, all those books are really saying the same thing. Our trauma is stored in our nervous system. Anxiety, if you look at anxiety from the medical perspective, anxiety is an inflammation of the nervous system. And there's certain molecules that are present. I think, is Dr. Wadu still with us? Yes. I think they're called cytokines. Is that correct? Cytokines are present that represents inflammation of the nervous system?
That's interesting. Cytokines are the chemical messengers, for lack of better words, that they traffic. They're the signal. That's a better word. Cytokines are the signal for directing inflammatory cells to the area.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So when cytokine numbers are at a certain level, that's indicative of the inflammation of the nervous system. And by definition, inflammation of the nervous system and anxiety. You ever get to a point where you're wringing your hands and you just feel like you're like, like you're about to explode? That's your nervous system is on fire. Okay. For lack of a better term. Okay. Cytokines.
So you said anxiety. You said anxiety is inflammation of the nervous system.
Anxiety is inflammation in the nervous system.
Yep.
So inflammation and fire. Now we're talking about, so we're on fire internally when we're dealing with anxiety and grief. That's internal fire. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Now here's the kicker. The reactive mind and the genetic entity are not the same. In the tech, I don't know how I missed this. It was the somatic mind that he later called the genetic entity. And by definition, I'm gonna pull it up real quick. The genetic entity, well, I know I could tell you off the top of my head. The genetic entity is a composite. Now, the word composite means a collection of a lot of things into one. It's a composite of multiple personalities on the time track, on the genetic line. The first thought that went to my head was in the Bible, in the book of Mark, chapter 5, Jesus came to a man who was cutting himself with rocks and who was crazy as hell. He said, "Who are you?" He says, "My name is Legion because we are many." So you had one individual that was a composite of many devils, correct? Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
So now,
Yes,
so
sir.
the reactive mind is what's stored in our nervous system based on the trauma we've endured in our lifetime. The genetic entity is what's stored in us from the trauma in our genetic line, meaning we have generational trauma that we carry around. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So we're crazy as hell because we have our own devils that we're dealing with from our lifetime, but we have stuff that's been recorded genetically from our ancestry. And in modern science, I think they call it epigenetics and they call it transgenerational trauma. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that was like turning the lights on. Now, there's a reason why I'm going in this route. During our coffee talk this morning, I was sharing that concept with my wife. And then the way I looked at auditing is like this. There's bits and pieces of us that are trapped on our time track. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Our being, the awareness of awareness unit or the thetan. Okay. If let's say we're composed of 1,000, I think on the chart, it has free theta. Tone 40 is 1,000 units. Okay. But right now, if I only have five, let's say I only have 100. That other 900 is scattered all over my time track. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So whenever I'm going back on my time track, I'm going back and I'm locating my attention units. I'm trying to put myself back together again so I have access to all 1,000. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
So if I go back to 1975, 1976, and 1977, if I can go to all those parts of my universe, okay? So could I say, watch this, could I say that my universe is a multiverse?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the idea from this movie came from that movie with Jet Li called The One. Y'all remember seeing that movie?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If you
I
haven't
don't
seen,
remember.
okay, if you haven't seen that movie, go back and watch that movie with this thought in mind. The premise of that movie was that there is, okay, the premise of that movie is that there's not a universe, there's a multiverse. And what happens is we have an individual, we have ourself, there's a self that exists in every other universe. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, there's multiple universes. I exist in this one, but there's another replication, there's another me that exists in another universe. So the premise of the movie was this dude, there was Jet Li, the good Jet Li, and there was the Jet Li, the bad Jet Li. Bad Jet Li was traveling to the other universes, and when he could kill himself in that universe, then that reduced the number of Jet Lis, and so the total energy was now dispersed to those that remain. So everyone's energy would increase. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
In
It
other
does.
words, the more he can kill himself in those other multiverses, the more powerful he would become.
Mm.
And the last war was between the Jet Li, basically, that was aberrated, and the Jet Li that was clear. Let's put it that way. The last war is with him and the bad Jet Li, which is like the last war is between him and his reactive mind. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
And I looked at that from the perspective of when we travel on our time track, if this is my universe, this is my reality, then when I'm traveling my time track, I'm actually traveling into my multiverse. So 1975 could represent a universe. 1976 could represent a universe. 1977 could represent a universe. So my birth name was Anthony. So I got to go back into the past and I got to find little Tony and find out where's little Tony trapped on my time track. I got to travel back and find him. And when I can heal that wound, I get that attention unit back. So the more I can travel in my multiverse and deal with those aberrated spots, I'm getting back my energy so that I become the one. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Go ahead, bro.
So go back, watch that movie in a new unit of time, and you'll see auditing. You'll see it. You're gonna see auditing.
Is that on Netflix or what is it on?
I have no
You got to
idea.
go to
I haven't watched
YouTube.
that movie in years, but we're having a movie night tonight. And I said, let's watch that movie tonight. I want to see it again
Okay,
with the
let me
mindset
see.
of auditing. And now,
Okay.
if you go and study anything dealing with multiverse, because remember, watch this. Mother Tanetta Muhammad said, and there's a video, she said that the Savior had the ability to travel in multi-dimensions. And I'm just going to leave that right there because I don't fully understand that. So I'm not going to talk about what I don't understand, but it's an interesting thought. If you look at your own universe, your reality, your time track as a multiverse.
Mm.
And what happens is, yeah, we haven't even gotten to the PowerPoint yet. What happens is that when you deal with this concept, what's called quantum entanglement is when you're dealing with two particles that as one changes, the other one changes instantaneously. These two particles are in constant communication, even though their distance can be light years away, thousands of miles away. The communication is instantaneous, meaning the communication between these two particles is actually faster than the speed of light. It's like maybe the speed of thought. Does that make sense?
Mm.
Y'all with me so far?
I'm
Yes,
not
sir.
understanding what you just said.
Okay, so
Yeah,
these
I'm a little
particles, like
lost.
when you have protons, neutrons, and electrons, what they're studying in the quantum realm right now. This is something that Mother Tanetta Muhammad had mentioned too, the study of quantum physics. In the quantum realm, these two particles they have detected communicate instantaneously, even though they might be at two different parts of the planet. There's an instantaneous change. When one is changed, they can see the change in the other particle. Now, I say that to say this. If these two particles of energy can change instantaneously and can communicate instantaneously, and if we, the awareness of awareness unit, not the physical mess body, not the body you're looking at, but we as the thetan, we as the energy that exists in this physical body is energy. And if part of my energy is trapped in 1975, that means the energy in 1975 is still in communication with the energy in 2024. So there's a part of me that believes that I'm still back there. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. That's part of the reactive mind. Yes,
That's
sir.
the reactive mind. I'm still in communication. Now we're just looking at the tech from the language of quantum entanglement. There's a part of me that's trapped at different parts of my time track in my multiverse. Auditing
Right.
allows me to go back and get those aspects. It's like Humpty Dumpty putting himself back together again. Does that make sense? You're looking at it.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
We're
sir.
being put back together again by the way of the tech because our energy is scattered all over our multiverse. Our energy is scattered all over our time track. the more I can get my attention unit back, the more powerful my mind is, because now my processing speed is operating faster and faster and faster. And what's happening is, in gaining that energy back, I'm getting my processing speed, I'm getting more in tune with that other energy, which is God himself, correct?
Yes.
And this is, I know we just kind of flew off on a tangent, but that was just one of the conversations we had today. Go back, watch that movie, the one with Jet Li. Interesting concept.
Right. So what you just said makes me reflect back on Our Savior Has Arrived. What is that? Page 81, 80, 81?
The 20-year period?
The 20-year period.
20-year period.
What we're in.
I stand on that.
Yeah.
And I've shared that. No, go ahead, Sister Tina.
Oh, no. It makes me reflect on that because since 2012, we've been given, this has been made available to all of the believers nationally, internationally, and I have been moving at a faster pace since studying and understanding this technology. Since, I started Brother Pateen's Zoom, and then your Zoom, so I'm understanding the technology. So this is that I'm thinking that this is that technology it talks about in the problem book. Modern, what does it say?
Modern equipment.
Technology?
Modern equipment. Modern technology, modern equipment is the same thing. I've shared that with some people, and they still look at me like, well, I don't know if that's right. Just look at the math. 1,380 years after the death of the prophet, Most Hon Elijah Muhammad uses the word judgment, and he says that's where the 20-year period begins. Take the emotion out and just look at the math.
Right.
2012.
That's right.
2012.
That's right. Can't refute.
You can't refute the math.
The math.
The minister said that's why the word numbers, and the word numbers is the word numb. Because the numbers don't have any feelings.
Okay.
Numbers don't care about emotion, what you want, what you think. No, the numbers are the numbers. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. It is. And the one is on Netflix. It is on Netflix. 8 episodes.
So that's your assignment. Watch the one, and maybe we'll discuss that.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Brother Scott, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, sir. How you doing, God?
Good, brother. Yourself?
Man, sticking and jabbing, ducking and dodging, bobbing and weaving.
Bobbing and weaving.
Assalamu alaikum, mighty Sister Tina.
Wa alaikum salam, my brother. How are you and the wife?
Oh man, listen, we doing it, man. I say if you saw us fighting the alligator this morning, I would say pray hard for the gator.
That's the spirit. That's the spirit.
And
Yes,
assalamu alaikum to all the rest of the family on here.
Let me send out the greetings to Brother Eric. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, sir.
We have one of the wise scientists with us tonight.
And assalamu alaikum to the whole family.
Wa alaikum salam, Brother Eric.
Alhamdulillah.
Let's see.
I'm just amazed with all the science that is being discussed.
So am I, brother. So am I. By Allah's grace.
Brother Lukman, that movie you spoke about, the one, it reminds me of The Arrow. I watched a series called The Arrow, and I could not fully understand all the back and forth in time that was happening. But when you explained how the movie The One went, I saw better what The Arrow was about. Okay.
Okay, and I got to go watch that. Because remember, Mother Tanetta Muhammad said that there's the scientists that put wisdom in the movies. There's a reason why certain we watch movies and we pick up certain things like, oh, did you see that? And some people say, what did you see? Well, that's just, it's like Allah says in Holy Quran that, there are some, the parable, Allah disdains not to set forth a parable, a gnat or anything above that. And those in whose hearts they're in harmony with Allah, they say, surely this is the truth from the Lord. And those in whose hearts is a disease says, what is it that Allah means by this parable? It's not meant for everyone to see it.
If I remember, the scripture also say Satan will tell you the truth, but you won't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because going to put it in a scientific way, or he will disguise the truth in a way that cannot be perceived by all, except for those who are rooted in knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I'm looking at anything on the TV right now, I see truth being revealed to us, but how many of us really understand it? And those who don't understand, they are the one to react.
Mm-hmm.
They are putting things to provoke the reactive mind, as you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm.
the whole thing that we are dealing with, including the subject you take today, it has to do exactly with communication.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't know the art of communication, then we're going to be doomed
Mm-hmm.
because you are always reacting. But how do they provoke that reaction from you?
Mm-hmm.
In fact, when you look at it, it is so simple at times, but yet very complicated.
Mm.
Sister Tina was talking about a few things, and if you look at it, whenever somebody provoke your mind into the negative, what is your understanding of that? Or how do you react to that? Because the ARC triangle, as we talk, so they are, if you build that reality with them, then you are in the same bag they are.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what they intend to do. Because the reality is a matter of agreement. You give me something and I agree with you. Now we got the same reality. At that point, can you build on that? No, you're going down the drain. But if you refute that they give you, if you know it's wrong, or if you know it's false, there is no reality there. So you cannot communicate because you need all the other 2 points. You need the affinity and reality in order to communicate.
Yes, sir. That's what we're
And
gonna get to.
that's where we are. There's so much more in that little triangle.
That's what we're about to do, brother. We're about to get into that triangle.
Alhamdulillah.
Sir. Sister Anya, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
How are you?
Fine, sir. Praise be to Allah.
And is our big brother Wahid with us today?
Absolutely. That's why there is no Anya without Wahid. Salam alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, brother Wahid, if you hear us. Praise be to Allah.
He raised his hands. Yes, he's
Okay.
acknowledging he hears
Okay,
you.
that's all we need. We're just thankful he's with us. Brother Rashid, assalamu alaikum. We informed to give you the greetings when you came on.
Walaikum salam, family.
Sir.
He plays with the Dodger, that's why.
Brother Scott, you got your hand up, and then we're going to get into our ARC triangle.
Yes, sir. The movie The One. One of the things that I thought was interesting about that is the main character, Jet Li. In real life, his name is Jet Li, which fits an Asian man. But in the movie, instead of his name being Jet Li or Wan Ting or something like that, his name is John Law. And every single universe that you find this cat in, he has the name John Law. And you have to ask, like, how did this little Chinese fella get the name John Law across every single universe? Now, you notice in all of the universes, he was a different person. He was a different character, but he had the same name. That was the constant. And the name John means, it's a really heavy name theologically. It means God is gracious, and it means God is merciful. And in its deeper theological meaning, it is God has been gracious. And I think part of the message in that, because you're dealing with grace and mercy in the first name, but law in the second name, because the law is a lamp unto our feet. And it just made me think about the restrictive law being our success. That is, because our success is when you attain his mercy and his grace in spite of who we have been, you know. And I think that that's part of the significant meaning in that film, you know, is the conveyance when overcoming the self, is that the restrictive law is our success.
Praise due to Allah. Yes,
Indeed.
sir. Yes, sir. All right, family. We are not going, obviously, to complete this. So there's going to be a part 2 because we're an hour and a half in and we haven't even touched the ARC triangle.
Go ahead.
So does everyone see a screen that says ARC triangle with a black woman with a crown on her head? Does everyone see that?
Yes.
You wanted to put me in trouble with my wife. She think that was a girlfriend.
Say what?
So you wanted to put me in trouble with my wife. She think that was a girlfriend. Just kidding.
No, sir. I'm trying to think where the idea came from. I think the idea that it'll come back to my mind as we're going. But so this is the ARC triangle, but being that it is Wednesday, and Wednesday is when we usually do mathematics. This is based on a statement of what I read with regards to, I think it was Dianetics 55, something that came up. Oh, give me 1 second. I got to plug in my computer. Right. This is based on Dianetics 55. And there was 2 statements that were made, and these 2 statements just triggered this whole line of thinking. So we're gonna combine the tech with mathematics and our Islam. We're gonna make our own triangle between these 3. Let me get this out the way. Can I move this? Yes. Okay. Okay. So the question I'm going to say is, first, what is the ARC triangle? Second point is understanding ARC through the language of mathematics. The negation of the ARC triangle, we might not be able to get to today. So this might be a part 2. And then ARC and supreme wisdom. By Allah's grace, there are certain aspects of ARC that correspond with ayats in the Holy Quran. But we won't get to that today. I might have to make one quick adjustment because I don't like how this is working. So let me do this first. Let me